Hello and welcome to Nervous System Day 1. So we're still in Unit 5, but we've moved on to another body system. We're talking about the nervous system. And what do you know about the nervous system already? So that's the do know question. Sorry, I said that weird. But what do you already know? Hopefully, you recognize that this is the brain, the spinal cords, and then all of these blue lines are different nerves. And it sort of looks like a bunch of blood vessels, right? Like veins and arteries. And in a similar way to how our veins and arteries carry blood, our nerves carry chemical signals that travel between our brain, our spinal cord, and different parts of our bodies. Because our brain is the control center for our body, and our nerves help our brain control the different parts of our body that are far away from it. So, the central nervous system here is depicted in pink. So, it's like central to the body in the center. And then the peripheral nerve system is all the nerves that come off. And those are the two parts of the nervous system are the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. So let's go ahead and move on to part A. Regulation in humans involves the interactions of the nervous and the endocrine system. So the nervous system sends fast signals, and the endocrine system sends slow chemical signals in the form of hormones. And we'll talk more about that during this unit. The two systems are similar in that they both secrete chemicals and both play a major role in the maintenance of homeostasis. In general, they differ in that the responses of the nervous system are more rapid and of shorter duration than those of the endocrine system. Like I said before, the nervous system fast communication, the endocrine system slow communication. The two major components of the nervous system are the brain and spinal cord. Nerve cells. The nervous system is made up of nerve cells or neurons, which are adapted for the transmission of impulses. So, sending impulses, sending chemical signals. Quickly, the nervous system contains three different types of nerve cells, which differ both in structure and function. These are the sensory neurons, interneurons, and motor neurons. So, what are these different types of neurons? The sensory neurons transmit impulses from the sense organ or receptors to the brain. So, from the sense organ, one of your five senses, that organ, uh, which has receptors, and the sensory neuron sends information from those receptors to the brain and spinal cord. And like it says here, the sense organs obviously include your eyes, ears, nose, and skin, right? Sight, hearing, taste, smell, and touch, your five senses. So, motor neurons transmit impulses from the brain and spinal cord to effectors. So, that's your muscles and glands, what actually make you move or secreting other different chemical signals from glands. So, your motor neurons send the chemical impulse to actually make you, let's say you touch something hot, your motor neuron pulls your hand away. Right. And the effector is the act where the act of actually pulling your hand away in the muscle. And the interneuron is inter between these things. So the interneurons are found in the spinal cord and brain, and they transmit nerve impulses from sensory neurons to motor neurons. So from feeling the hot thing to pulling your hand away is the interneuron in between. So, how does the nervous system regulate homeostasis? So, the nervous system regulates homeostasis by secreting chemicals to send quick nerve signals, right? So, by secreting chemicals that regulate a given situation, that regulate different situations depending on what's going on. Like the example I used before, touching something hot, pull your hand away. Uh, Hear a question in class, raise your hand and give the correct answer, right? Your nervous system is the control center for all of the actions that you might do. The nervous system is composed of nerve cells or neurons. What are they adapted for? Nerve cells are adapted for the transmission of impulses, for sending those chemical signals. What is the major role of the sensory neurons? To transmit impulses from the sense organs to the nervous system, the eyes, ears, tongue, nose, and skin. What is the major role of the motor neurons? They transmit impulses from the nervous system to the response system or the effectors, which are muscles and glands. So the motor neurons are actually transmitting the impulse to make you move or, raise your hand, speak, whatever the nervous system is directing your body to do at that moment. And you can see down here, that is an image of a nerve. And what is the major role of the interneurons? They're found in the brain and spinal cord, and the interneurons transmit information between the sensory and motor neurons. So they're between. And you can see here below, this is a neuron. So this long part here is the axon. Here at the end is the axon terminal, or the end of the axon. Then the opposite end of the neuron is called the dendrite. And you're going to see in the next slide how it looks actually in our body and why they call it the dendrites. Because dendrite, I believe, in Greek means tree. And you'll see the dendrites branch off the axons. And what happens when a chemical signal is sent from one neuron to another, they're all lined up, sort of axon to dendrite, and the chemical signal is sent down the axon and it's picked up or received on the following dendrite. Looks a little something, hold on, like this. So you can see here, this is the soma or body of the neuron or nerve. And so you can see it has the nucleus there. Over there on that end is the axon, where the signal, or yeah, forgive me, I was like, wait, I just said that wrong. Yeah, so the axon is coming off of the nerve here, you can see, and coming off the ends are, again, the dendrites or branches. And you can see the signal or the action potential, which is the electrical signal that is traveling down the axon, originates at this end where the body is. And the dendrites are what are off on the ends of the body of the nerve. And then the terminal buttons form the connections to the next cell, right? And so let's say your brain was sending a chemical signal. You just saw a cute puppy. It might send serotonin, which is a neuron, a neurotransmitter or a chemical communicator in your brain, a chemical messenger. It would send it to the next neuron, and the way they would communicate, the way the chemical signal would travel from one neuron to another is by waiting in that terminal in what's the space that's called the synapse. And the axon is also covered with this myelin sheath, and the myelin sheath is made out of fat, and that myelin sheath helps kind of like the insulation on a wire, like your phone charger, right? It is insulated, and then when it like breaks a little bit, then it can't charge anymore, and you're like, no, that's what could happen if you have damage to your myelin sheath. And actually, if you have Parkinson's, it severely damages the myelin sheath, and it affects the ability of chemical signals to travel from one neuron to another, which affects your body in a major, major way. All right. So, I don't believe this is on your paper, but this is. So, suppose you are old enough to drive. As you are driving, you see a child come onto the road. How would your body respond? Oh no, a kid is in the street. What am I going to do? Well, first, you see the child in the street, right? So your receptor, your sense organ, your eyes see the child, and you're like, ah, child, right? But first you have to see the child. Then your sensory neuron, which is connected to your eye in this case, sends the chemical signal to your brain. I have seen a child in the street. What do? Then your interneuron sends the communication between your sensory neuron that just saw the child and sent the communication to your brain, between your brain and the next step, which is the motor neuron. Except you can kind of think of the interneuron in this case is the brain in this way, right? Because these signals are not always traveling all the way to the brain. And in the case of a reflex, they're actually not making their way to the brain. Instead, this interneuron is sort of the nervous system transmission conjunction station that transmits this signal between the sensory neuron and now your reaction to get away, to turn the wheel, to not hit this child in the street, which is happening at the motor neuron. And then obviously the effector is like your hands turning the wheel. So you can see there, this receptor is in the eye, or in this example, I guess your foot stopping the car. Braking the car, the sensory neuron, the interneuron is represented here by the brain. But again, in the case of a reflex, the signal is not traveling all the way back to the brain. Although obviously many signals do travel to our brains. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we continue to talk about the nervous system. And final step, the effector. And I do believe that's all I have for you today, ladies and gentlemen. So today's aim was, how does the nervous system maintain homeostasis? We talked about the central nervous system, which is the brain and spinal cord, and the peripheral system, which are the nerves, and a little bit about the reflex arc and how the nervous system actually maintains homeostasis. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Don't forget to go ahead and complete your exit ticket. Have a super fantastic day, and I'll see you all tomorrow on Zoom. Bye, guys.